Hello and welcome to the Copycat Stitch podcast. This one's going to be a little bit of a mini podcast. I have a little bit to talk about. Maybe in an ideal world, this is what a normal podcast would be, and it wouldn't be mini. It would just, they would all be this short. But she's going to hit the camera stand with her tail. I've been going too long between podcasts lately. So it's only been a couple weeks since the last one. I have a few updates, not too many. However, I am leaving for vacation in a couple days, the day after tomorrow, and I want to make sure I have all my loose ends, so to speak, tied up before I go. And one of those is I wanted to catch you up on all of the things that I have finished and worked on and acquired since we last spoke, because I think that all this stuff will go out of my brain when I'm on vacation, and then I won't remember to talk about it on the other end. Plus, hopefully I've got some great, cool projects and acquisitions to show you from my vacation. So I have a couple little finished objects, and I only have one whip that I decided to show you because they're largely unchanged. And then I do have some acquisitions that I want to talk about too. So let's get into our little mini pod. My first finished object is this little baby hat. I don't remember what this pattern is called, but it is a free pattern, I believe, from Pearl Soho. So it's likely just called something very simple, like baby hat. I don't know. It was extremely very simple and very easy to make. It was kind of a last minute cast on because my nephew was recently born and I wanted to make him a little hat. And I had this yarn, which is from Kramer Yarns, left over from a moonset tee that I made myself last year. So I just thought this would make a nice little hat. It's a cotton nylon sock blend, so it's machine washable, and I think it'll be very helpful for him as babies, have cold heads even when it's 90 degrees outside. Maybe. I don't actually know how baby temperature regulation works, but I know it's a little iffy. So at some point he will need a hat. And even if he can't wear it for a bit, this is really stretchy, and I think will be comfortable on his little noggin for a while. I have another finished object that you never even saw as a whip because I only did it in 3 days. I've had this project on my Ravelry queue for a while, kind of just as a stash buster idea and just to use up a bunch of different colors of this one yarn that I have. So if you've been on the channel before, you will remember me saying that there was this one time, 3 or 4 years ago, that I went to Christmas tree shops and got a whole ton of different Lion brand yarns, most of them discontinued novelty yarns that were $1.99 a skein. I'm going to be working through that stuff for the rest of my natural life. I swear. I know I had a picture of my cart all full up with yarn when I was there, but I don't remember if I have access to that picture anymore. But I truly bought a ton. I had definitely sweater quantities plus of 3 different colors of low tide, which I still have quite a bit of that left. I bought 8 or 10 colors of Summer Kiss. There was a few different colors of Comfy Cotton blend available there, which is one of my favorite bases that they make. So of course I stocked up on that. And then that might be all, but honestly, there might have been more. Anyway, I've been working through this stuff for years. I've still got plenty more to go, but I do have relatively small quantities of all of the colors of Summer Kiss. I think before I started this project, I had 7 or 8 colors in my stash, and I had the idea to make a hexie cardigan, and I had chosen this pattern, the campfire cardi, to do so. So I picked out my little palette. This is not all the colors I had, but the pattern is written for 4 colors. I originally picked 4 colors, but I was very skeptical that I would have enough to get through the pattern because I didn't actually have the yardage required for any one of them. But with a pattern like this, I kind of thought it doesn't matter. There's so much randomization, and even every stripe is a different height and different amounts of rows. So I thought, honestly, if I run out of one, I'll just get another one and add more and sub it in and kind of randomize it a little, which is exactly what happened. This very bright green color, which I think kind of balances the palette a lot. This is definitely more chromatic and like colorful than I would normally make for myself, but I do like the way that this looks together. And you know, at first I was like, this palette kind of looks familiar and I can't really place what it is, but and then later I realized that this is very reminiscent of retro Taco Bell, which seems to be the theme of the summer, but that was not intentional. So this green color, I only had one skein of, and I did basically run out after doing this main hexy chunk for both sides. So I saved what a little I had reserved to do one little stripe at the bottom here just to try to balance it a little. But otherwise, I subbed in this pink color wherever the green was supposed to go. Obviously, I don't think you can tell. Like I said, it's a very randomized pattern. It's a very long cardigan. I didn't realize as I was making it quite how long it was, but it's fun. And the sleeves do even taper a little bit. I don't know if it's obvious here, but you can kind of see how they taper a little bit. And obviously it's a very open weave. It was made with a very large hook, which is why it worked up so quickly. I started this on a Friday night and not like the afternoon, like at night when I get that itch to cast on something new late in the evening, as I often do. And I worked on it all weekend and I finished it, like wove the ends in on Monday morning before work. So pretty fun. And a bunch of skeins out of my stash. I'm pretty sure I used 6 or 7 skeins in entirety on this, and it worked up so fast. Very satisfying. Definitely checks that like productivity accomplishment box in my brain, and I'm very pleased with how this one came out. So most of my whips I decided not to bring to show you because I've been working on most of them a little bit, but honestly they all probably look the same. I've added a few rounds to my moonset tee. I've added a few rounds to my ripple crop top. I have added a few rows to the front panel of my zesty tank. And I mean, basically they all kind of look the same except maybe like a fraction of an inch taller. Other than that, I was working on the projects I just showed you, and I have been doing a little prep to get my vacation whips cast on, but I'm really not diving into them yet, even though I really want to. And after I start them, I'm like itching to go back and work on them. It's not the point. I'm trying to get them on the needles so they're set, so that when I'm on the road, I have options to choose from. So I have cast on 2 of the 3 projects that I'm taking, and the 4th is already a whip. And I'm not going to show those now because I'm going to do a vlog about my travels. I'm probably going to end up talking about them in the podcast after I come back, but this is supposed to be a mini pod and I'm just going to leave it there for right now. The one whip I did bring to show you is the Moan cardigan because this is the only one that looks markedly different from last time. Not done yet, but the body is. So I haven't sewn the buttons on, but I did finish the body and knit the button bands on both sides. They're a little wibbly. They don't stick the right way. Obviously, the buttons will help with that, but also blocking, I think, will help with that too. So it looks like a vest right now with all the finishing around the edges, but it won't stick up quite like that. Let's try to simulate the collar like this. Hey! So that's exciting. And I did kind of barely start one sleeve. I think I have like an inch of the cuff ribbing on one of the sleeves. So I had a really strong streak of doing this for a day or two and I was really enjoying it. And then once I got to this point, I was kind of a little burnt out on it. So I have not proceeded with the sleeves. I did, however, pick out buttons, and I want to talk about them because I think it's a little bit notable. So I have a pretty sizable button stash, most of which are either vintage from like thrift stores or garage sales or what have you, or inherited. I decided I wanted to use these little fake leather ones. I don't know what these are called, but they are shank buttons. And I know it used to be more common to have leather ones that were actually wrapped in the leather, but these are modern ones that are all plastic and they are just kind of sculpted and colored to look like they're the leather wrapped ones. But this cardigan actually requires 7 buttons, and I only had 6 of those. So I decided to go through the stash I inherited from my grandma, which is all in a separate box. She already had them organized in a little box, and I thought it just made sense to leave them in that. And then every time I use them, I know where they came from instead of assimilating them into the rest of my button stash. And what I found was one that is exactly the same color that is actually one of the vintage ones. So it's got a little metal shank on the back, and you can absolutely see that it's the real leather. I'm going to try to give you a close-up of it. So this one is one of the plastic ones. I have 6 of these. You can see on the back the little holes from casting in the plastic, and that it's fake. And then this is one of the real ones. This is the one real one. There was only one in there. You can see it's actually a vintage button. You can see where the leather is wrapped around it. And from the front, they look just similar enough that I don't think it'll be a problem that there's this one to blend in with the 6 that are identical. And I think it's going to be such a cool little Easter egg that I have one of my grandma's buttons on this cardigan. So I'm excited to do that. I haven't sewn them on yet, obviously, but all I have left to do for this one is to knit the sleeves and attach them and sew on the buttons. Because I did all the other finishing work and woven the ends already. That project is one that I've had like waves of enthusiasm for. It seems to me that every time I want to work on it, it's like hot and heavy for like 3 or 4 days, and that's all I want to do. And then I get to a checkpoint and I kind of don't feel like working on it anymore, and I don't work on it for a bit, especially in the summertime because it is so hot here right now in the middle of a heat wave. I don't think it's unbearably hot. It's about 90 degrees outside, but it is warmer than normal, and that does make it like maybe not the best weather to work on like a fuzzy acrylic sweater. But when there are cooler days, I have been enjoying myself working on that. The last thing I want to talk to you about is a little acquisition I got. I recently released my Yarn Tourist walkthrough of the Central New York Fiber Festival, which is a series that I started last year towards fall, doing on no commentary walkthroughs of Fiber Festival. So if you haven't checked that one out and you're interested, please do. I think they're really fun to make, and I like being able to create the opportunity for people that aren't able to physically go to these festivals to have a little stroll through the festival and maybe see what's on offer. And I do make an effort when I'm there to get the business name in the shot as I'm walking by, so that if you see something interesting, hopefully you can look up the seller and connect with that. So when I went, I had absolutely no intention of purchasing anything. Like I mentioned, I'm going on vacation soon, and I am determined to save my money so that I have spending money on vacation, because the budget's a little tight right now. And I told myself I'm really not going to buy anything. I had $10 in my wallet, and I told myself I can spend this $10. I know 5 of it's going to go to parking at the Fiber Festival, but that other $5 I can spend. I did end up spending 3 of those dollars on a stitch marker, because there was a booth that had some very cute little like enamel stitch markers, and they had a strawberry one, and all of them were $3. So I decided to get myself a little strawberry stitch marker, because I actually don't have one that I like. I have some that I made myself out of beads I found at Michael's years ago, but I don't like how they came out. So I'm happy to have a little strawberry stitch marker now. And that was the only money I planned on spending. And I was just going to film the walkthrough and enjoy the atmosphere and chat with any of the viewers who stopped me, which a few of you did. So it was so nice to meet you. I'm so happy that you stopped to say hi. It really, really does make this whole thing so much more rewarding to actually get to see and interact with some of the faces on the other side of that camera. So I very much appreciate that you said hello. And that was my plan, just to chat with folks, to walk around, shoot my video, and then carry on. And for the most part, I did that. But there turned out to be a very unique and, in my opinion, once in a lifetime opportunity to purchase some very, very affordable yarn. Because there was a booth there that I noticed on my second pass. I didn't even notice on my first pass around when I was filming with the camera, but when I was walking back just browsing, I noticed that this one booth had every single item marked down to impossibly low prices. It was my assumption, based on seeing all the sale signs, that was corroborated when I asked the proprietor that they are going out of business. They just don't want to do this anymore, and I guess they had already signed up for the festival and paid the fee, so they thought they would show up. but they had everything marked down. They had fiber bumps and fiber braids on 2 of the walls, and those were all $10 a piece, which is insane. And then they had signs that said all yarn $5. Well, it was very difficult to get into the booth. It was packed with people, as you can imagine, because this is like an insanely good deal, right? To get like hand-dyed yarn and or fiber for such a cheap price. And it was kind of one of those things where there was already people in the back and everybody was just kind of trying to push their way in, and everybody was trying to be patient and standing behind them, but it was kind of a very slow moving wall. So I ended up standing there for probably 10 or 15 minutes, sort of in a line to get to the back and be able to see the entire wall of yarn. And at first I had a couple hand-dyed skeins picked out, which I ended up putting back. There was almost never 2 matching skeins. They were, for the most part, one-offs. Lots of them were very, very pretty. It was really interesting dye choices and color combinations. But I ended up spending my money on hand spun, because once I got farther back into the booth, I realized that about half of the yarn that was in stock was all hand spun, which is wild. They all have the original price tags on, and they're all between $40 and $60 a piece, which is appropriate for a skein of hand spun, possibly even a little low. And I got each of these for $5 a piece, which is just utterly insane. So this business was called Touch of Alaska. I don't know if he's going out of business properly. I would think so, if he's trying to just unload all of his stock for so cheap. But for reference, this company is called Touch of Alaska. I ended up buying 7 skeins of his hand spun yarns, so I'll show you those now. 4 of them are just one-offs that I just thought were really pretty colorways. There's not a ton of details on these. I'll read you the details that they do have as I go through them. This one just says silk and wool and has the boxes checked for hand dyed and hand spun. So I love this color combination. It's so pretty. I actually had a moment of truth recently where I had one of those moments in the evening where I was just itching to cast on something, and I was trying to find something in my stash to pair with this because I wanted to use this particular one to cast on something right then. I decided not to, and I ended up holding out and not casting on something new that night. All right, we've got another one here. This one started to come unskeined, but very, very pretty pastels and some more chromatic blues and yellows mixed in. This one just says Alaska wool. That's it. That's all the information I have. But just such pretty barber pulling. The colors just look so nice together. I imagine that these single skeins will end up being part of like a shawl or a feature in a colorwork sweater or something like that. This one's so pretty. It's the base, or I guess half of the ply is one of the plies is black, and then the other is this like almost metallic pretty jewel tones. I love this one. This one also says silk and wool and has hand dyed and hand spun checked off. Okay, one more one-off. This one is so pretty. They're all so pretty. I keep saying that. So for this one, I'm describing the colors just in case my camera isn't picking them up quite as clearly as I would hope. But one of the plies is this very deep, like verdant evergreen color, like a forest green. And then of course it's plied with all of these pretty pinks and oranges and teals, and I mean basically the whole rainbow, but I just love this palette so much. And this one says Alaskan fiber, hand dyed and hand spun. So excited to find something to use these for. And then this last one I bought purely because there were 3. And this is a garment quantity, either a sweater or a t-shirt or something. So maybe this like super deep salmon color isn't something that I would normally go for. However, this is a decent quantity of it. And I mean, whatever this turns into is going to be a hand-dyed, hand-spun garment that I made for $15, which is just mind-blowing. So these say Alaskan fiber, hand dyed and hand spun. Also, this one has a note. This is wool and alpaca. Oh, they're just so pretty. So pretty. All right. So those are the only acquisitions I had. I just wanted to really show you. Oh, here's my little stitch marker that I couldn't find. Yay. So I just wanted to share those acquisitions with you. That was such a rare opportunity for me. And I mean, I still think I did pretty good going to a fiber festival and even presented with such a great opportunity like this. I only spent $35. I feel like 7 skeins is not a lot. And when I was there, this booth was not picked over. I mean, he was definitely selling through his stock very fast and people were going through and buying a lot, but there was still a lot to choose from when I was there. And I feel like I could have spent a whole lot more there, and I didn't do too poorly getting out with just the 7 skeins. Great, so that was a nice little update. I hope you enjoyed this shorter format, even though it's a little different. And before I go, I just want to mention that I have finally been working on editing my craft room update videos. So those are going to end up being a series because part of the process of redecorating the craft room wasn't just, cleaning and organizing and decorating, but there was going through some things in the process, like my grandmother's knitting pattern library, the craft supplies I inherited from both of my grandmothers, and things like that. So I split it up into a couple episodes because there are sort of different topics encompassed under the umbrella of redoing the craft room. So I'm going to start releasing those episodes soon. Keep an eye out for that. And once I start releasing them, I am going to do them 1 week apart until they are all out. I believe at this point there is going to be 3, possibly 4 episodes. So hopefully you are subscribed and you will see when those are ready to be watched. And I hope to see you back here then. Thank you so much for tuning in now and every time. Bye.